Okay, so imagine this. You've got to sell brand new, cutting edge software to probably the most complex, most bureaucratic customer on the planet, the United States military. I mean, it sounds basically impossible, right? Well, today we're going to dive into the story of one startup that's actually doing it. And in the process, they're completely changing how military planning gets done.
And look, let's just start with this massive claim from the founder, Grant Demory. He says that what his company, OneBrief, is doing is, dollar for dollar, the single most important thing happening in defense tech, anywhere in the world. That is a huge statement. So, what's backing it up?
Well, for one, there's this number. OneBrief was recently valued at $650 million. So, this isn't just some founder's pipe dream. This is a company with some serious momentum. And it's because they're tackling a problem so fundamental that solving it is, well, it's incredibly valuable.
So, what is that massive problem? It really all comes down to how the military makes plans. For decades, the answer has been a mountain, and I mean a mountain, of Word documents and PowerPoint slides.
The old way they discovered was just staggering. You're talking about hundreds of PowerPoint slides for just one plan, being emailed back and forth between a dozen different headquarters. A major plan, like how to defend an entire country, could take up to 2 years to write. It's insane. OneBrief's whole approach is to use these reusable digital cards of data that update instantly for everyone. It compresses that 2-year timeline down to weeks, or, as we'll see, even hours.
And the impact was immediate. Get this. At one major headquarters, the chief of staff just flat out rejected a plan, called it terrible, demanded a total rewrite. Normally that's weeks, maybe months of work. But using OneBrief, the team rebuilt the entire thing, new maps, new slides, the whole shebang, and got it approved in just 3 hours. That's the kind of speed that literally changes how you can operate.
So who is the person who saw this problem so clearly that he decided to leave the Army just to build a solution for it? Let's get into the founder's journey and meet Grant Demory.
Grant's story really kicks off back in 2014 in Liberia. He's a young lieutenant during the Ebola crisis, and he's watching as critical decisions get delayed by months, all because they're just passing PowerPoints around. A few years go by, he's in Iraq and Syria, and he sees the exact same thing. And that's when it clicks. This isn't a one-off issue. It's everywhere. It's systemic. And he has this huge insight. The real bottleneck in defense isn't about better weapons. It's about better decisions. And he decided he was the one who had to fix it.
But having a great idea is one thing. Actually selling it to the Pentagon is a whole different beast. So to get his foot in the door, Demory had to get really creative. He basically used a series of clever hacks to bypass all that bureaucracy.
He couldn't get access to real users in a real headquarters, so he just created his own. He started cold messaging military planners on LinkedIn and actually paid them to give up an entire Saturday for a simulated exercise. He had one team use PowerPoint and the other team use his early prototype, and the response was just incredible. The planners were so blown away they started offering to make introductions for him inside their own commands. They basically became his first internal champions.
Now, one of those introductions led to a call with a guy named Captain Dave Fields at U.S. Pacific Fleet. And Fields was super skeptical. He told Demory, look, I've seen at least 10 failed attempts to solve this exact problem, and they've all been terrible. But after a 2-hour call, he saw something different in OneBrief, and he decided to give them a shot.
And how did they make that very first sale? It wasn't some multi-year, multi-million-dollar contract. Nope, it was with this, a government purchase card. It's basically a credit card that a lot of officers have for small purchases, and it has very little red tape. OneBrief closed their first deal with one swipe, totally hacking the agonizingly slow procurement process just so they could get a foot in the door.
Okay, so getting inside was one thing, but to actually grow, to really scale, they had to go up against these massive institutional walls that are basically designed to keep startups out.
See, in the world of defense tech, there are these 3 great barriers to entry. You've got to get clearance to work in secure facilities, you have to figure out the crazy complex contracting system, and then there's the big one, getting an authority to operate, or ATO. That's the official cybersecurity green light to put your software on military networks. And that last one can take years and cost millions of dollars.
So how in the world did they get around that massive ATO problem? Well, with just a beautifully paradoxical hack. They built collaborative software and then used it with absolutely no collaborators.
This part is amazing. They couldn't put their software on the network, right? So instead, they put it on a single laptop, turned off the Wi-Fi, turned off the Bluetooth, and got permission to bring that one machine into a top-secret facility. Grant Demory himself then became the sole user. He built an entire real-world contingency plan on that one disconnected computer and would just project his screen in meetings. It was a total hack, but it worked. It proved the product's value in a real environment.
And that proof, it led from a tiny $15,000 purchase card deal to their first real contract for $322,000. But honestly, the money wasn't even the real prize here. The most valuable part of that deal was that the Navy agreed to sponsor them to get their official ATO. That was the key. It gave them the keys to the kingdom, access to the military secure networks. That was the only way they could ever truly scale.
So, with those barriers finally broken and the company scaling up fast, what's next? Well, the vision is to bring artificial intelligence right into the heart of military strategy itself.
And they're thinking about AI in two main buckets. The first one they call mundane utility, and it's already live. It just uses AI to automate all the small, tedious tasks that slow planners down. But the second bucket, that's the real game changer. That's about using AI to automatically generate entire courses of action, the very core of a plan, and potentially create strategies faster and smarter than any human team ever could.
Ultimately, the vision here is to become the core operating system for every military headquarters. We're talking from small battalions all the way up to the joint staff, for both the U.S. and its allies. The goal is to create these lightning-fast, AI-assisted staffs that need fewer people and can react to world events pretty much instantly.
And this really brings us to the final big question. OneBrief is basically betting that in modern warfare, the ultimate advantage isn't going to come from having more tanks or more ships. It's going to come from the ability to think, plan, and decide at superhuman speed. It's a really profound shift, and it suggests that the future of defense might just be written in software.